For most people, the most important thing, if you're going to run, is to be satisfied that you're the right shape and the right type for the sort of running you want to do. There's a lot of argument about whether you should run to get fit or get fit to run. Whatever you want to do, and for whatever reason you want to run, it's very important that you should build up very gradually. If you're fat and overweight, that's even more important than if you're fairly lean and rangy, a sort of greyhound build, which gives you a bit of an advantage to start with.
What we're trying to do is to understand the mechanisms behind the adaptation to training. And although we don't pour all our energies into producing one super athlete, as many people might expect sports science to do, what we do achieve is by understanding what sort of training methods produce these adaptations, we have a clearer picture of how everyone may train to achieve their personal potential.
We're not all born to be Olympic champions. In any group of normal, healthy people, there are some who find running fast is easy and others who find it much more of an uphill struggle. But if we're lucky, we're all born with the same engine. So why is it that some engines work better than others? Are there any scientific reasons, for example, why I can't run as fast as Steve Jones?
Winner in record times of the London and Chicago marathons, Steve Jones has a physique found in most long-distance runners: light, supple and lean. Now, most of us don't have the physical advantages of champion runners. We have to make do with what we've got. But now sports science has shown that with the right training, almost all runners can improve. In the interests of science, and also because I was curious to have my athletic abilities scientifically assessed, I went to Loughborough University. There I placed myself in the hands of a team of sports scientists to be given what amounts to a physical MOT. I think I'm still roadworthy. I'm hoping science will prove it. In assessing distance runners, sports science is mainly concerned with fuel economy. That is, how efficiently the runner is processing oxygen. So this breathalyzer will provide evidence to show whether I'm using too much oxygen or less than average when running at my normal speed. By the time I was fully plumbed in, I didn't feel I had much oxygen left. It's a curious sensation, running for half an hour and getting nowhere. But what's all this effort doing to my muscles? I think I should be told.
Muscle is composed of two types of muscle fibres: slow twitch fibres and fast twitch fibres. The slow twitch fibres are slow to contract and slow to fatigue. They have good endurance qualities. Fast twitch fibres are fast to contract but fast to fatigue. And in general, it's been found that sprinters have a large proportion of fast twitch fibres. Endurance runners, marathon runners, have a high proportion of slow twitch or type 1 fibres. It's not generally thought that training can change muscle fibre composition, but the fast twitch fibres can be given endurance qualities with appropriate training.
Running produces a build-up of lactic acid in the blood. If it accumulates slowly, fatigue is delayed. If you've ever felt exhausted on a run, you could be producing too much lactic acid. And me?
What we would say that in all the tests we perform in the laboratory, these would probably predict the minimum you can achieve. Because as you're well aware, once one gets into the arena and competition begins, then one can draw on all sorts of additional psychological resources to try and bring the best out of ourselves.
I sit down to replace the blood I've already donated to science, and what happens? They take some more. But what has all this got to do with the will to win?
And so in our predictions, they are, as it were, a cold Monday morning prediction with minimal of psychological input. Having said that, when we look at the physiological attributes of running success, from the tests we've performed, they would account for about 80 to 90% of the reasons for success of running. That extra 5 or 10% may well be the mental attitude and the mental preparedness of the athlete.
I think everyone is aware that the mind has an impact on their performance. Whether they're aware that they should include systematic mental training, I'm not so sure. Let's put it this way. More and more people know that they can do something with their mind to improve their performance, and it seems to be gaining more and more recognition as an acceptable complement to physical training.
Who found that exercise quite easy?
It's now recognized that the mental approach of top athletes can be analyzed and taught. Sports psychologists Christopher Connolly and John Sire mostly train professional athletes, but they agreed to demonstrate their methods to children at a North London school.
What have you got to say about the exercise? Anything that comes to mind?
A lot of times I do that and I'd have a bad race, so I don't think about it. It's only when I feel good that I run well. But like in competition, I just don't seem to produce it at all.
I think it's very important, if you're competing in any sport, to be very clear, first of all, what you want to achieve, to have a plan. And part of what we do is simply that, is to help people to get clear what they want to achieve within what time scale.
So sometimes, no matter how hard we train physically, a mental problem keeps us from performing at our best. Is there a particular mental problem that you have that sometimes does that to you?
Yeah, like at the beginning of a race, my mate or something comes up to me and says, that girl looks rather good. And I sort of think that I can't win or something like that.
Yeah. Mental rehearsal is when you find that you're going through a phase perhaps which is not so good, where you've lost your sharpness and you want to recapture form. You then need to sit. This is an exercise you do at home, but you sit at home, you relax, and you allow your mind to run over a good performance or a clip from that performance, like a film clip, in fact, what it felt like on that particular day, and you feel the weather, you feel the ground beneath your feet, and you feel kinesthetic, physical feeling of running in that way. Rehearsing that does tend to bring back that performance.
The perfectly ordinary runner is really trying to figure out what his relationship is with his body. And what mental training can do is give the ordinary runner, the everyday runner, slightly more insight into the body and begin to open up communication channels between his conscious mind and his physical performance.
Meanwhile, the intrepid investigators at the University of Loughborough are about to make a breakthrough. They've discovered that the temple body is capable of one up, one down, more or less in time to the music. Amazing, considering what that body's been through. A simple test, but one of the most effective to measure the relation between exertion and the use of oxygen. Because of their intensive training, all top runners are able to delay the build-up of lactic acid, and they can conserve their oxygen supply to give them that extra something that makes them winners. Now enough of the science of running. The ordinary male runner is primarily concerned with getting out of the door and putting one foot after the other. That this moves him forward he regards as a major achievement. Women do too, but they have other difficulties. Although recreational running is now well established all over the world, women are still reluctant to run alone. For this reason, a few years ago, a sisterhood of women runners was formed. It led to groups being set up in many parts of the country.
The Sisters Network started in 1983, and since then we've had over 4,000 women from all over the country write to us and wanting to take part. And as a result, there are now many races for women only, and many more opportunities for women to get out running, not on their own.
I sometimes feel that I don't enjoy it at all. You know, I find it very hard work, but I do get a great sense of achievement when I've finished. and nobody can do it for me.
For some people, even if you were the fattest, spottiest girl at school, then it's that sense of achievement. For me, it's setting myself a target and achieving it, whatever I do, and then the next time, improving.
I just felt that I was getting much older, and if I didn't start doing something soon, I wouldn't do anything at all. I wouldn't get going. That's really the reason why I keep going, is because I don't give up now.
My husband was running, and he used to go out running every evening, and I was left to do all the chores, and I thought, it's not much fun, I should get out running with you. And we do run together, but in races he always goes off, and I say to him now, whatever you do, don't look behind or look at the side, because I shall pass you one day.
I think it's better to join a group because you get a lot more encouragement from the other experienced runners. To do it slowly and not to go out and try and run a marathon in about 3 or 4 months. You've just really got to start and enjoy it. Don't worry about timing or anything like that. And then the encouragement you get from other runners, and I think that's most important, where if you run on your own, you get sick of it.
I'd never done any exercise since I was at school, and I used to be a compulsive dieter. And I started running, and I hated it at first. I thought it was the worst thing in the world. But I found that I could keep my weight down. I could eat exactly what I wanted. And it just gives you a lot of energy all the time. It just makes you feel really good.
I feel good, I feel healthy, and I like the freedom. It doesn't cost you much. You can just run anywhere, around the streets, through the parks.
Another problem has been that women go along to clubs, and not all clubs are like this, but they sometimes go along and find that everybody's warming up at and doing these ridiculous looking exercises, and they all pip their watches, and they've all disappeared over the horizon. You never see them again. And they find that a very humiliating experience for a beginner, and perhaps they won't turn up again. So they need this helping hand. They need somebody to say to them, this is how you do it, this is how you start off slowly, do everything gently, just take it easy. Don't try and go with these fast boys. Just come with us and we'll help you.
Nice and relaxed. Hey, ready, go. That's a good one.
Back at Loughborough, an experiment to show what happens to the running foot when it hits the ground. Weight distribution, the angle and force of impact and takeoff can be measured and analysed. In the best runners, all these factors combine naturally to enable the power source, the legs and the feet, to operate at maximum efficiency.
You might like to look at the top trace, which is that forward force, and notice that the first part goes below the line.
And why is that? It goes below and then back up again?
That's right. Well, this part, when it's above the line, is where you're driving off. But in every running action, even at a steady speed, you have some braking effect. And when you put your foot down, you slow yourself down. Perhaps we could look at the next screen, and you'll see that in actual fact, we've collected not just the 2 channels that you've seen before, but other information as well, which enables us to look at how you're applying force sideways and where you're applying the force on the sole of your shoe. And what we do is take that information and combine it for our analysis in a number of ways. And for example, in this case, we've got the vertical force that we saw, supporting your weight, and that driving force represented as lines. The longer the line...
The results provided even more proof why I was right to quit at the bottom. In the nicest possible way, I was told that an anatomical design fault would have made success unlikely.
Show you where you're changing from a braking to an accelerating phase. So the red is slowing down and the blue speeding up. And as you see, the left foot is very smooth.
There's something different with my right foot, though, isn't there? Because there's some blue in here.
That's right, certainly. What you can see here is a slowing down, then a slight speeding up, and then another slowing down. What this represents, in effect, is an initial contact on the outside edge of your foot, going forward, and then your weight comes back towards the arch of your shoe before you drive off from your big toe towards this side here.
But in fact, I've got a left foot and a right foot, and from this, they operate slightly differently.
Almost independently.
So you have the results.
But the results of all the tests, collated by computer, were encouraging. Or perhaps they were unrealistically optimistic.
Well, our results show that you're able to run at a speed of about 7 minute 20 miling before you have a significant increase in your blood lactic acid concentration. Translating this into performance, what it tells us is that if you run at this speed, this 720-minute miling, then you probably wouldn't exhaust your muscle glycogen stores. It also tells us, these results, that you're able to utilize just about 77% of your maximum oxygen uptake before this lactate begins to accumulate.
What I really wanted to know was, if I put in some serious training, would I be a threat to Steve Jones?
With some extended training, putting in the mileage, doing some speed endurance work, that you could go just under 3 hours.
Well, I knew I wasn't Steve Jones, but now it's official. But in the early 60s, the runner I would like to have been is somebody who never gave less than his best on the track for Britain. Bruce Tulloh ran in the Olympics, and he was European 5,000 metres champion. And he inspired many runners and non-runners with his coast-to-coast run across America. Bruce is a teacher now, but he's still a runner.
What else would you need in the endothelial reticulum?
In 1969, Bruce Tulloh set out from Los Angeles to run nearly 3,000 miles across the United States to New York.
Bruce, just one more. Carry on.
But why, without the incentive of competition, does he continue to run?
It's that feeling of freedom you get and being in control and being your own boss, which running gives you very few other sports do, because you have a few minutes, you can just open the door and get out and run.
These days, Bruce is coach and mentor to schoolboys, his family, and Paul Trimnell, an ex-jockey with impressive times at both the half and full marathon. Living in the heart of ideal running country, Bruce is out on the Wiltshire Downs most days throughout the year.
Nowadays I feel, although I look forward to going out running every day, I feel that I can do as much or as little as I want to do. When I was running competitively, I think I must have felt under obligation, partly to myself and also to the club I was running for, or to the fact that I was running for Britain, or was going to be running for Britain in a few weeks' time. There was always that obligation that I felt if I went out I had to train hard. And sometimes this would become a bit wearing, so it wasn't always pleasure, because you felt, well, I've got to get a hard session in. But in those days, I think it came from really the springs of ambition, that I was a very ambitious, competitive person, so I felt I had to get out and show what I could do. Well, most of the time, my training is conditioned by the people I'm coaching, rather less by my own needs. But I would normally reckon to run 5 or 6 days a week. And if I go out, it's seldom for less than 4 miles. So it's going to be between 4 and 8 miles a day. So I'm running about 30 miles a week, I suppose, to maintain my endurance, keep my weight down, allow me to eat and drink as much as I feel like. That's one of the main objectives. Secondly, am I running fast enough for some of the times? If you're just jogging along, you're not going to make much progress. In fact, you're going to go back a bit. So sometime, probably 2 or 3 times a week, I'm actually going to be running quite fast. But that usually fits in with the people I'm coaching. So when I do want to race, I've got all those things there. I've got the long runs and the regular weekly mileage and a bit of speed training as well. Okay.
Whoa.
Right, well, I think we just keep it steady for the rest of the day, Paul, and just want to work out really what you're going to do the last few days for the next race.
Yeah.
What do you have in mind?
I feel like today we had a good day today. I don't want to take the edge off.
You could say that Paul was a classic new wave runner, in that what made him start running was the first London Marathon in 1981, and until then he'd never competed in any sort of running at all, and he took to running as something he could really have a go at. You don't want to put a lot of speed in, something slightly faster than race tempo, just so you've got that feeling of stretching out and feeling loose without really digging down too deep.
I run with Bruce once or twice a week. Most of the work we do is on the track in Marlborough, which he does the speed work with me, which is anything from doing reps of 200 metres up to 800 metres.
I suggest what he does in training, what we're doing good, and he goes out and tries it. And then he does what he feels he'd like to do, and he goes out and tries that.
And between the two of us, we arrived at a pattern which suits him. I don't think everybody should run. I think you should look for the activity which suits your temperament and your body type, and which gives you the necessary fitness training. And running is easy, and it's very accessible, but it doesn't mean it's the best exercise for everybody.
Coaching a committed runner soon brings an improvement in performance, but coaxing largely reluctant schoolboys to enjoy running is not an easy task.
You've got to, first of all, try to induce as many people as possible to like it. So when I've got large groups of boys who are being introduced to running and perhaps have had rather unfortunate experiences of compulsory runs in the past, and it does need a bit of sort of persuading that running is fun. And so we try to build up with slow and easy running, and then gradually increasing the distances, not putting too much pressure on people, and also showing them that whatever your standard, what matters is that you improve. So if you're a rather chubby little chap who can only go around the 1 mile course in 10 minutes, and then a few weeks later he can do it in 8 minutes, and that's a real achievement, and he's got to be congratulated for that and see that he's improving, feel that he's getting better, and that's very important.
Well done. All right, good on, Simon. 30, 31, well done. 35. Okay. Well done.
And then I think you go on to try to identify the people who really are natural runners and really enjoy it, and then say, well, you're good, you've got some talent, I can help you get better, and then you start to stoke the fires of ambition.
That's the sort of, obviously you're not going to run that speed all the way, but you've got, at the end of any race, you've got to learn to pull out anything you've got.
The final stage of Tullows Run, from California to New York City, 2,876 miles in 65 days. As he arrives at the East Coast, a generous welcome from New York, as it salutes a great achievement. The last few yards of an epic run that was to mark the end of Bruce's running career. With their father as an example, it's not surprising that all 3 Tullow children and their mother have taken to running.
We always said we would never push our children into running, but one of the girls said to me when she was about 4, "Daddy, why is running the most important thing?" And I said, "You'll find out, darling," and she has. And so the fact that Sue and I enjoy sport and enjoy running, I think has led them to take it up naturally. The twins, you see, didn't run at all really until they went to secondary school. And they came along to fun run with us when they were sort of 8 or 9. They did quite well in that, but it just was a fun run, no pressure on them. But I could see they were quite good runners. And as soon as they went to secondary school and started running as first years, they immediately won their races. So we've gone on from there, and we've gradually upped the competitive level.
Right through, hands right down, plenty of knee lift. That's it, good Joe, right through, hands right down, really nice. Good.
I think that's the other thing about kids. It's no good saying you ought to run because you're going to be much fitter in 20 years' time. They're not interested in that. They would like to run so that they can win their next race. And so for them, I generally only talk about a few weeks ahead.
So for Bruce Tullow these days, running is a family affair. The days of greatness may be over, but now he shares with others the lessons from a life of running.
Runners tend not to verbalise their feelings very much. They work their feelings out through their running. And running is a very, very free and independent activity. It is very much an expression of yourself. And you can see the achievements. It's very measurable, and you can see that you can start from a low level and reach a higher level, keep on getting better. And that's, in any activity, that's very satisfying. You know you're getting better.